Terima kasih bagi yang sudah balik. Nah, sekarang kita ada agenda selanjutnya nih, yaitu sharing dengan Mr. Farid Muhammad as Online Partnership Group Google Asian Pacific dengan topik sharing berjudul Innovation dan Design Thinking Tool. Please welcome Mr. Farid Muhammad as Online Partnership Group of Google Asian Pacific with the topic Innovation and Design Thinking Tool. Mr. Farid Muhammad, the floor is yours.
Yeah, thank you, Nadia. Hello, everyone. I'm really glad to be here. So let me just share my screen first. Okay, so you should be able to see the screen. Do let me know if you can. Yeah, so welcome back, everyone. I hope everyone has had a good lunch. And I had a good lunch also. And I hope that this next part of the sharing will be relevant to everyone. So here's the agenda. So for the next 2 hours, I'll be covering the third principle of design thinking, which will be prototype driven, and putting all the 3 principles together, and lastly, designing an innovative workplace, which is the third principle in design thinking, which is be prototype driven. So can anyone tell me in the chat box what they think a prototype is and how long it usually takes to build a prototype? So feel free to fill in the comments, the chat section. What you think a prototype is and how long a prototype usually takes to build. What is a prototype? Okay, so Dhanendra says depend on the game, maybe 1 to 4 weeks. Depend on the scope, maybe 2 to 3 weeks. So yeah, some of you might say that it's a few weeks, but you'll be surprised. After I go through some of my examples, it really takes no time at all to actually come up with a prototype that can help you develop your game. So why is prototyping important? Prototyping is important because when we generate a whole bunch of ideas, as shared with Cindy earlier, it's now time to determine which of them is worth pursuing further. And to do this, we prototype. Many types of problem solving involve thinking or calculating your way towards solutions. So prototyping is a way of building your way towards these solutions. So what is a prototype exactly? So a prototype is an early version of a tool, service, idea that has 2 important functions. So first would be outing assumptions. You don't know what you don't know, right? So when tested, a good prototype can help reveal to you what you have not seen before. Maybe there's a seemingly insignificant feature in your product that when used breaks the whole experience for your users. Maybe you thought users would do one thing with your product, but when playing with your prototype, the prototype actually does something totally different from what you actually wanted to do. And a prototype also helps to answer questions, and every prototype asks specific questions. A good prototype, however, will offer answers instead. So one definition of a prototype that I felt, and it combines the elements of innovation and also design thinking into the entire prototyping experience. So let's watch this video. From that video alone, we can see how Dr. John Dunlop, who is a vet, or in Bahasa Dr. Hewan, shows that people from unrelated industries can come up with great prototypes. So as you know, the name Dunlop tires, as you have heard before, it came from this vet named Dr. John Dunlop, who was who stitched up rubber tires using just rubber sheets that were just lying down in his operating theater. So next, I'll be talking about the prototyping effect. So the prototyping effect, why is it so important to out assumptions and answer questions through a prototype? The prototyping effect is all about failing fast, learning from your failures, and trying something else again. Can anyone tell me why is it important to always minimize the amount of slow failures that we have in our prototypes? In the chat section, perhaps. Why is it important to have fast slow failures? Anyone? Yep. So as Fredian mentioned, fast failure means fast success, right? You don't want to have So that's one thing. You don't want to invest too much time on something that is eventually going to fail. You spend 1 year of it. Imagine you spend one entire year on it and then it fails. Then what's the point of doing it? You've wasted time, you've wasted resources. So with a prototype, it's very fast for you to have fast failures. And that helps you with the research process even faster. So very simply, it states that the more ideas you try, the more failures you experience, the more successes you enjoy. If you try fewer ideas and fail less, you'll get fewer successes. And in the long run, it's helpful because by failing more and fast, you can try out more ideas without having to sink too much money into the research and development. Yeah, so as you all rightly say, early failure is early success, fast failure, fast success. Yeah, and so the moral of the story is when prototyping, just keep trying things. Don't talk too much about one idea or keep trying to make one work, even if it's not working. Just move on and try something else. So the types of questions you should ask when prototyping, it's important to ask and hopefully help answer these questions, which is, do people want it? Would people use this thing? Would people buy this thing? Would people prefer this thing over that other thing that is currently out there in the market? So these are questions that help you validate if the idea you have is worth pursuing or not. Prototyping here saves you a lot of money and time, and it's better to find out if people don't want a product before you invest time or money building it. And the next question you can ask is, how should it work? Can people do this thing if we want them to do? How will this interaction feel? And do people understand where to click based on, like, let's say your app? Is it very obvious that this function here, is it very easy to understand you should be clicking here? So prototypes can help you determine how a product or idea service should function. Then the next question is, how do I prototype? Well, there's two ways you can prototype. First is you fake it. So you may have heard this before, right? Fake it till you make it. But here it's like fake it or make it for prototype. So for fake it, how quickly can you fake the functionality or appearance of an idea so you can more quickly validate it? And then for make it, how can you quickly, cheaply, or partially make a product to answer some fundamental questions about the designs or the needs it's addressing? Next, suppose I want to find out if people would prefer working in the sky in a hot air balloon as an office. So you had the idea of creating a floating desk in the sky. You think it's a good idea. You think people would like working there, but you're not sure. So prototyping this idea would help you quickly validate whether people want a floating desk and how you should design it. So how can you fake the idea? So you can fake the idea by making people experience how it feels like to work in high up places. So how do you fake this idea? Maybe one central question you have is, do people even like working in high places? Since your idea is about making a desk in the sky, right? In a hot air balloon. So you want to answer, do people like working in high spaces? So to test this idea, you could simply put a desk on the top of a at the open rooftop of a building and see what happens. Importantly, with this prototype, you're not even building a balloon. You're just testing a small but important aspect of your idea. So how can you make this idea? Maybe another question you have is, how much helium is required to lift a person? You quickly prototype your way towards an answer to this question with a visit to your local party store. You buy a can of helium and a bunch of balloons. The point is, you could run both of these prototypes very quickly and cheaply, and doing so will give you a whole lot of information on whether or not your idea is good to pursue, and if so, how to make it work. Then the next question would be, will people use a device? So will people use a device that fits inside a shirt pocket? So what are some examples of how prototyping has been used in the development of actual products? Jeff Hawkins, who is the co-founder of Palm Pilot, was determined to create a portable computer that, unlike the available options in the mid-90s, people would actually use this product. One of the first questions that Jeff wanted to answer was how big to make it. So maybe he thought it should be small enough to fit inside a shirt pocket. So a shirt pocket is around the size of like your hand. And to test this idea, he cut a block of wood that would fit in his pocket and walk around it with it for months, pretending that it actually worked. What he learned in testing the prototype was that yes, the size worked. By validating this idea with a quick fake it prototype, Hawkins was able to produce a blockbuster success of the Palm Pilot. And in the 1980s, McDonald's considered adding some Italian options to get their first fast food menu. They had no idea though that if there was any demand for it at all, would people actually want to order a McSpaghetti? And their solution is that they faked it. Rather than spend months in a food lab designing the entree, rolling out across their stores without even knowing whether people would eat it, they simply added it to their menu and watch if anyone would actually order it. If someone did, of course, they would just say, sorry, we are fresh out of the McSpaghetti. So what did they find out? Did anyone, what do all of you think? Did anyone order it, the McSpaghetti? Feel free to use the chat. So we have a range of answers. We have no and yes. Why no and why yes? Right. Okay, so we have Guppy say because you might order it because he's curious. Or for Nadia, she said she just wants a burger. And people will want to order it because it's different, right? There's actually no McSpaghetti. There's no real spaghetti. They just decided to fake it in this case. So in actual fact, they find out that no one actually ordered the McSpaghetti, even though it was on the menu. So what did they do? They eventually abandoned the idea of having the McSpaghetti in their menu because no one ordered it, right? So what's the point of having it? So that's one way that you can actually try to have like a fake it prototype, because if you put it in the menu, no one orders it, then you shouldn't put it at all. Okay, next. Okay, so an example of making it, an electronics store wanted to figure out if there was a way to sell electronics if people were paid money to give back their old ones, or rather sell their old ones. So one idea is that people might be more eager to buy new stuff if they got money for selling their old stuff back to the store. And to test this idea, Best Buy, which is in America, set up a pop-up shop in their parking lot of one of their stores. And they will give you money for your old electronics and then see if you spend that money in the store. So they prototyped this idea and they validated the idea, and eventually they built it into a highly successful service that is now part of the core Best Buy business model. Yeah. So another example of making it, the Google Glass. Any of you know the Google Glass? It's like those glasses where you have the small screen and then you can blend the entire reality and your virtual world together. So the Google team wanted to find out if users who actually want to navigate the Google Glass software using hand gestures. And I will share the video after this, and here's how it worked in the video. So can anyone tell me what problems or what aspects of their product were they actually trying to solve through their prototype? Can do so in the chat. So he mentioned two different aspects of the product that he was trying to solve. One would be something that starts with E, and the other one would be starting with F. Yep. So the experience, so the feasibility of it, the experience, users' experience of using it. And the other thing that he mentioned was the ergonomics. So the ergonomics is how comfortable this product actually is, right? So imagine you build a product and people are not comfortable using it, and you already produce it at the end. So it was good that Tom actually came up with this prototype so that you can find out, is it actually comfortable to wear a glass on your on your face the entire day and walking around with it. So eventually they find out that it's socially awkward to wear these products, and eventually they just didn't have it. Yeah. So behind the other example of the whiteboard, right? So will people actually use their hands to navigate software? And behind the whiteboard example is a simple mechanism of two chopsticks, two pencils, some tape, and also a presentation clicker. So when a user will extend his or her arm, the tension will pull on the chopstick and depress the button of the clicker. One hand will advance the slide deck and the other would move it back. So they learned that through this simple prototype was that the ergonomics and the social awkwardness of using hand gestures in navigation, and ultimately decided against building out this technology. So these are not lessons that they could have gotten quickly through focus groups or research. Prototyping just got them the answers that they needed quickly. And there's going to be a few group sort of discussions. So I just want to let all of you know that you can use this website called gather.town. And through this, you can actually try out the live walkthrough and create your own team workspace. So once you have created a team workspace, you can send the link to your teammates based on your studio, and you can discuss in your respective virtual room. So there's going to be an activity soon, so I'll just copy this link. And so next, the next activity will be how you prototype the following scenarios. So the first scenario is, would people actually want to be in a job rotation so that they can learn about their peers roles? So would people even sign up for a rotational program? How will you prototype this? And then the next would be rules of perhaps your mobile game. How do you have a simple, straightforward gameplay? How do you find out more about like whether your gameplay is simple and straightforward through a prototype? And then lastly would be food delivery app. How quickly do people need their food delivered? So how will you prototype this? I'll just drop the link to the activity. You can just go to the presentation, the slide deck, and then you can fill in your studio name. And okay, so once you are here, you can create your gather.town, and you can discuss with your respective groups. These are the questions, and this is how you use the slides for your Jamboard. So you can replace your game studio name, and then for the rotation, how will people sign up for this? Our idea is to have blah, blah, blah. And then rules of your mobile game. How do you have simple, straightforward gameplay? We can prototype this game by so on and so forth. So I hope everyone can jump on the Jamboard and with your teams, and then discuss in your respective teams. You have, I'll give everyone about 5 minutes. So we'll reconvene at around 1:40 p.m.
Silakan kalau mau mengubah, insert your team name there, and then you can Farid, can we edit your slide there?
Oh yes, you can. Yeah, you can edit the slides directly.
Oh, okay. So you guys, if you want to answer it, just maybe create your own team and then answer the question. Simply like that. 5 minutes. Gambar ya.
Yeah. Thank you, Nadia. Feel free to just use the Jamboard that is given. And if you want to have your own one and not share with your team, feel free to go ahead. So just insert your name directly to any empty Jamboard. Okay, we should be wrapping up now. I'm seeing some answers already. That's great to see. So I'm just gonna take a look through some of the answers that were given by some of the teams. So for rules of, remember to put your name as well at the top, so I know who gave the idea. So for the rules of your mobile games, for prototype number 2, they say just put player with skill, or for shalalala, just put player with skill or whatever that player can do and enemy that can attack. Don't make an asset yet, but maybe the effect is okay, so the player feel feedback of the attack. So simple animation or simulation. So yeah, that's right. I think sometimes when you want to create a game, maybe one thing you can do is try playing the game in real life or something like that. Now see whether the rules make sense, see whether it's actually possible to have like a fair gameplay with this set of rules that you have wanted to prototype. And another group says prototype using pen and paper. Have each person describe the next person's job, their own job description and next to him, and then rotate. And yeah, that's actually quite a great idea because you want to create a program. Before you want to create a program, you see whether people are actually interested in the job roles of the person next to them, right? So Slab also said pen and paper, physical prototype using clay, experience physical simulation using something. So exactly what the previous group has mentioned as well. And for food delivery app, they said using a simple app and a countdown timer, and then they can see sort of like how many minutes it takes for the delivery to come. I saw a few more. So testing for like the games, testing the game without any UI or tutorial of the game. So that's right. For the food delivery app, using a timer, delay the food arrival based on the time and the distance that they know. So perhaps what I'm getting from this idea is like a prototype. Okay, let's say you order food and then they give you an estimated timing. Would people actually want to wait that long to order food, or would they rather just walk out themselves and go out themselves and grab food themselves? So yeah, this is a great idea as well, having like estimated timers and all that. So a few more. Yeah, so this ... says you can put a fake menu for people to choose how long they need the food to be delivered. So exactly the same simulation of the timing, whether people will actually want to wait that long when they order food online. I don't think there's any more ideas. So thank you everyone for participating in this. Really, really great ideas. And remember, prototype can always be very, very simple. Like the Google Glass example, they just made it using some thin frame wire, and that's all that they needed for a so-called prototype. So moving on. So what questions exactly did you want your prototype to answer? So always remember, create a prototype that can help you answer a few of your core questions. So when you when you give those prototype, remember to come together with your group and always have an idea of what questions or what pain points you're trying to address from the user standpoint. As Cindy has mentioned just now, know the user and think 10x. So these are the two things that you also need to consider when coming up with a prototype. And like Team Cho's example, remember that the ergonomics and the feasibility of the idea is something that you can test out within like 45 minutes of creating a prototype. Yeah. So always be prototype driven when coming up with a potential idea. And you also want to test your ideas. So now we are at the last stage of the design thinking framework, which is also testing, which is part of the prototype process. So these are very important phases in the process where we can test our ideas with our users and iterate them back on the user's feedback. And there are usually lots of iteration cycles between prototyping and testing. And the Google Glass is an example of this. So find your user and test your prototype. Testing equals to having empathy for your users. So find your original user and get some feedback on your prototype. And measuring success, how will you know if your prototype is actually successful? So it's always important to determine this matrix before you test out your prototype. And you can do that by creating metrics for your prototype. Let's say I want to find out if people can wear the Google Glass for extended hours, like entire day, 8 hours. So how many hours will actually be considered as successful? Would it be 8 hours or 6 hours? or even 4 hours, taking a rest, taking it off at in the middle of your day, and then when you go for your lunch and then wearing it again after your lunch. What are these metrics that you want to measure for your prototype, and what can you consider as success? Sorry. So as you engage your users with your prototype, always track the following: what worked well, and where does the user wish things were different? What new ideas does this spark for you? And what new questions or lingering questions do you have? So there are 2 rules here. Always remember the 20-80 rule. So let the user speak for 80% of the time, and you introduce the prototype 20% of the time. If it's the other way around, if you're introducing 80% of the time, your product 80% of the time, and the user only speaks for 20%, that's just you selling your product. And you wouldn't want to sell an unfinished product, right? You always want to get as much feedback as you can before you actually launch the product. So a good time to actually practice this, which would be in your testing stage when you are letting them try the prototype. So remember, you're not pitching ideas, just explain how it works and let the tester talk, and always capture notes from your tester. And we can prototype as if we're right, we test as if we're wrong. So prototype as if we got it exactly right. The final product is exactly how we want the prototype is exactly how we want the final product to be. But when you go into this process, you want to test as if you're not doing, it's not perfect. So it's somehow something's wrong. And learn to celebrate these failures, learn and share, and then go back to the prototyping process. So that's all. That's about it for the entire design thinking framework process. So a few things to remember here is focus on the user, think 10x, and be prototype driven. Takeaways is to always steal the moment. As we come to the end of this framework section, let's review the framework and process that we use today. So a couple of things that help to put this framework into practice should be focus on human values, as Cindy has mentioned just now. Always focus on the user. They can help you build something meaningful and useful, as well as something that you have never discovered before. And have a bias towards action. Time is not an excuse. Look at what we achieved today in just the span of the first 3 hours of the design thinking framework. And always try to invite people from diverse background, because they help you see different perspectives. So let's say all of you are creating games, right? So how can you target both people who usually play mobile games, as well as capture new groups of people who usually didn't used to play mobile games? So how can you change that? A good example of this that all of you can read up would be Animal Crossing. So Animal Crossing is a simulation game, right? So how did they actually manage to get such a diverse group of people to start playing the game? So there's something that you can perhaps research about as well as you develop your game. Get experimental and experiential, and this can be done through your prototyping process. Just creating something that looks similar or feels similar, or wants to bring out the same experience as your product, you can just create it in perhaps 45 minutes, as the video has showed earlier. And always be mindful of the process. Know where you are in the process and where you are headed. So remember the innovation life cycle. Where currently is the industry in, and where is it going in the next few years? What type of games would be popular in the next few years? And show, don't tell. It's much more powerful. Don't be afraid to use random materials to bring your ideas to life. The Google Glasses was made through wireframes, and that's when they know that it wasn't really worth pursuing, and you won't be really popular in people's lives. At this current stage, at least, we won't know in the future. And collaborate across boundaries. Open innovation. Always be collaborative with other people. Remember that your product is never perfect, so you might get ideas from people from other studios, or even other markets that might not that you might not have the same perspective of. So this is something that you can do. So to summarize, design thinking is user-centered, prototype-driven innovation. Everyone is creative and has the potential to become an innovator. Action planning, for action planning, you need to think about what can I take away from this session, and always take 2 minutes to write down what you want to take away by responding to the 3 prompts, which is I like this aspect, I wish this aspect, and what if you can do something differently. So that's about it for the third principle of design thinking. And now kalian consider seperti innovative workplace dan elemen-elemen innovative workplace. What are some examples of an innovative workplace, and as well as what are the elements, and also some examples of innovative workspaces that you have seen before. So like for example, for Google, we have Lego walls, right? Like in this picture where you can sort of stick the Lego bricks and make anything that you want. We have work and play spaces where you can work and play at the same time, or standing desks. Even standing desks is quite an innovative thing, right? Because standing desks can help you to think faster. And it's scientifically proven that when you stand up, blood goes into your head. You think a lot faster than when you are sitting down, and you're more effective in thinking that way. Okay. Then for the next one, what makes innovative workplace? So meaningful change takes more than just technology alone. So schools can't meaningfully change with technology alone, but technology can be a catalyst for change when it is integrated into a holistic approach. Often technology is the most simple part to implement when attempting to transform schools, let's say. So what can be learned from perhaps Google's culture? Can some of the ideas and values that have made Google such an innovative workplace be replicated to, let's say, staff or students and schools as a whole to become more innovative? So there's actually 4 different frameworks, and before we go into that, we know that innovation is something that cannot be forced. You can, however, create an environment in which it can evolve organically. So you can simplify the point at a school leader point of view, and tell them to be more innovative in their approach to perhaps teaching and learning, but it won't work. However, if you create a culture in which innovation can thrive, then the results will be so much better. And that is what we're going to explore here today. Yeah, so for Nadia, she said, make a comfortable loo. So maybe innovation idea will pop out when they are on it. Yeah, so when you are reliving, when you are popping out something else, then ideas can perhaps pop up in the loo. Yeah, it happens. Like for earlier Cindy shared, right, where are you most innovative? Sometimes you can be innovative at work if the elements in your workspace has the elements to make it innovative. For myself, I'm most innovative when I take shower right before I fall asleep. Baru nak lelap, then I think of a very good idea. That's just me. Then I have very little sleep. I cannot function well the next day. I'm just kidding. I can still function, but yeah, sometimes you just have innovative ideas at random places, and sometimes you don't want it to be an office setting where you are in your cubicles and people won't really have that space to innovate. So we actually have 4 foundations for a culture of innovation, and this is the culture section of the Transformation Center. Google lays out these 4 foundations for a culture of innovation. So it will be curiosity, empowerment, collaboration, and risk-taking. So for the first one would be curiosity. Curiosity is always the spark of innovation, right? So can anyone tell me what was the spark that helped John Dunlop develop the tires. Can anyone tell me what was that spark of innovation for the Dunlop tires? What triggered the tire to be invented from, let's say, the what he saw, what he experienced, and what he was curious about? Can anyone tell me what was the curiosity? Remember the story? What did he buy for his son? Ting ting ting. What's that thing where you write? What was the thing that he bought for his son for his birthday? Can anyone tell me? Something that you write. What is something that you write? What was he curious about? Anyone? Okay, it was a bicycle. So with the bicycle, he bought his son the bicycle, right? His son rode the bicycle, and he was actually when he saw his son riding the bicycle, he actually saw how uncomfortable his son was. So it made him curious about how can I make the tires for my son's bicycle softer so that he can have a softer ride and it won't be so uncomfortable for him to ride on the bicycle. So it's a habit to constantly wonder why things are the way they are and looking at them from different perspectives and questioning how they might be different. And people and organizations that encourage curiosity can always generate an abundance of new and innovative ideas. And of course, it's a lot of fun. So perhaps to share also curiosity at Google, we have physical spaces as sort of a way to have innovation thriving in the organization. So we encourage playfulness because through play, sometimes you generate ideas, great ideas. We have like breakup routines where we break down ideas and then everyone comes together, and we also inspire out of the box thinking. So like instead of having staircases, we have, let's say, instead of having staircases, we have slides that allow people to go down instead of stairs. And we also have TGIF, so we treat employees like owners, and we always allow people to question the status quo. We share ideas across the different functions and different organizations, and we of course promote transparency and trust. Only through this way we can have everyone start sharing ideas. And curiosity starting points is always to start thinking about, okay, what is my team's identity? How can I change out visible spaces to keep things fresh? And how can I think outside the box? So like some things Nadia said, learning on the do. That's an actual thing where people can actually learn while they are not in the office environment. So perhaps you can start thinking about all of this, and through this activity, remember that you have your gather.town rooms open, right? So you can go to this new link and start filling up just the yellow portion of this the Jamboard. So let me just switch over. So for the first activity, just do activity 2 first. Take 5 minutes to perhaps think about what are my team members and myself most productive. Where are you guys most productive? And where are they and myself the most innovative? What are my team's member and myself curious about, both at work and beyond work? Where do I see myself and my team heading in the next 2 years together with the developer studio? So here's an example. Just fill up activity 2, just activity 2 only. Perhaps let's say example, Sam is a member of the team. He's most productive in the mornings. He's most innovative when he goes for his morning run. He's curious about green tech, and he wants to have a team of 100 people in the next few years, so that there's more specialized teams across the entire organization. So remember to fill up your team name. Thank you, Anoa Interactive, for already filling up your name. And thus do perhaps activity number 2. And have fun doing it. We will see each other at 1:20 p.m. So they are most productive in their own respective caves. So yeah, that's actually very true. Everyone is most productive when they are thinking by themselves, when they have the moment to themselves. That's when they are most creative. But they're also most innovative when debating in the group chat. Why? Because everyone is collaborating, I assume. Everyone is giving ideas and everyone is just building upon everyone else's ideas. So remember, this is part of Cindy's concept of yes and instead of no but. So yes, and you take someone else's idea, you say yes, and we can do this and this. And they are most curious about gacha rates, Dota best matchup, RPG mobile game, formation. Wow, okay, rightly so because of your gaming studio, right? So that's quite interesting to see. And you want to be a legal cooperation with a game that you like to play together, made by yourselves. Yeah. So curiosity for OGPs. OGP don't really just need to do activity 2 for now. You are most active in work hours, maybe 9 to 5. Yeah, that's fair. Most innovative when having a discussion together, curious about new technologies and games. That's great. And the rest, most productive at midnight or late at night asking for everything. Yeah, same when I'm about to sleep and also when I'm in the toilet, right? So during watching a movie, wow, that's interesting. Maybe when you watch something, you get to see ideas. So most productive, early, midnight, curious about finding new life experiences, new gameplay, creating good games that people like. Yeah. So some people are more innovative in the afternoon, so that's green smiles. Most innovative when we lay on our bed because our mind is not relaxed, but not sleeping. Yes, like your brain sometimes work like clockwork in the middle of the night. And we want to have an increase in team members and revenue. Yeah, that's great. So that's what you're curious about. I don't think there's any more. There's one here. You love to try and explore new things. Yeah, keeping an open mind will definitely help. Keeping a curiosity about new things will definitely help you generate more ideas down the line. So keep all this in mind, and perhaps after today, you can discuss together with your team what are my team members curious about, or what am I myself am curious about. So moving on to the next one about empowerment. How do we empower our team members? How can leaders within the organization foster empowerment and staff by broadening their freedom to set their own goals, make their own decisions, and when people are empowered to take ownership over their work in their working environments, they often become more motivated and they are more open to trying out new ideas. By promoting a culture of empowerment and ownership, leaders can harness the collective intelligence of the entire staff to find more innovative solutions to their complex problems rather than shouldering the entire burdens themselves. So empowerment at Google, like this, that's an example that I can give. 20% projects, we let all employees explore an area of interest, build new skills, collaborate across silos, and gain insights into big picture analysis. So 20% project is sort of like your side project. So you have your core project, which is, let's say I'm a coder or I'm a software engineer. So most of my 80% of my time will be experiencing or will be working on just engineering the game. But 20% project, let's say I want to work on green technology implementation in the office, my game developer office. And I want to explore, like, let's say, implementation of solar panels to power the entire office. That can be my 20% project. And Google Giants is about honoring employee voice, promoting transparency and trust, confronting real issues, and using data to prioritize and solve problems. Yeah. So when you actively involve people in decisions, you empower everyone in the company to contribute. That have greater ideas and a more innovative culture within the workplace. So here's a video about how Here's a video about how to manage collective creativity. You won't watch the whole thing. Okay, so from that video, you can see that empowerment starts with actually empowering all employees and not just having the leader talk most of the time and the leader making most of the decisions. When you have when all of you are in your respective game studios, all of you are rock stars because all of you are taking this first step together to create a new mobile game and introducing it into the market, right? But what creative managing collective creativity is about having those diversity, having those conflicts, and only when you have them, then you can start having a better idea instead of just um, one person speaking most of the time and the rest being too scared to actually oppose or not stand up against the other person, but rather to challenge the other person's idea or even to make the idea better at the end of the day. So that's what managing collective creativity and having empowerment means in your company. So the next one would be collaboration. So for collaboration, how do you connect, synergize, and share across the different teams? Innovation flourishes in environments where ideas can flow freely between people, teams, and different levels of an organization. After all, good ideas can come from anywhere, and amazing things can happen when diverse people work together and they build upon each other's ideas. So for collaboration at Google, we have G2G and meetings. So Googler to Googler, and you magnify your internal experience, you grow your in-house talent, and you connect with people across the organization. As for physical space obviously brings people together and they mix people up and create serendipity. So even even now when you are using your gather.town, that's another way, right, where you can sort of have collaboration in a virtual environment. You can move your avatar around, you can talk to certain people and not talk to certain people because you want to have internal meetings. Just 2 to 3 people out of 5 people in the organization. So that's something that perhaps we want to use in the future because of the current pandemic. Then you can't really be in a physical space together. Perhaps you can consider meeting up virtually. So transparency is also about using tools that make it easy to collaborate. So for Google Hangouts, we use it to talk to each other from anywhere. We use Google Meet so that we can meet with people remotely. And then we have Google Drive. With Google Drive, we can collaborate and share information to people in our team at a click of a button. The moment we type a certain letter, it will appear on our friend's screen, our colleague's screen. And then we also have Google Forms, which helps us to ask, measure, and respond. This allows us to get good feedback from people. So collaboration starting points can just be, through calendar, which is easier for everyone to see when each other are available. So if I can see your calendar, I can see what you're working on. I will understand like, oh, okay, he's too busy. He probably doesn't have time for a meeting today. Perhaps I can rearrange for another meeting and even understand like, oh, maybe this doesn't really need a meeting. Maybe this just needs an email. And that's where collaboration can happen. And you can also provide time and space for people to come together. And this can be done using like online meetings or even using the gather.town function, like the app, I mean. So yeah, it's always important to respect each other's times and give space to people before getting them to come together. Okay, so I will just keep the activities for now and leave it for the end. The last one would be about risk taking. So risk taking is about dreaming big, reaching for the skies, experimenting and trying. So trying ambitious new things is always inherently risky. Sometimes things simply won't go ahead as planned, and innovative cultures recognize and that considered risk taking and thoughtful failure are part of the entire process, and it's essential to arriving at a truly transformative idea. These cultures reward people for dreaming big, even when their big efforts fall short. Taking many frequent small risks and learning from each other's small failure along the way can help to maintain an innovative mindset while avoiding catastrophic failures. So here are some examples of risk-taking at Google. And even before I shared some examples like the Google Glass and the glove controlled screen in the Minority Report, that movie. So Waymo is a sort of like a project that Google undertook, right? And Thinking 10x is also something that a Google initiative of thinking at a large scale. How can we solve global problems through technology? So that's what we do as for risk taking in Google. So risk taking is, however, is also about providing that psychological safety. So what is psychological safety? Is the belief that one will not be punished or humiliated for speaking up with ideas, questions, concerns, or mistakes. So this was an idea from Amy Edmondson from the Harvard Business School. When you want to provide psychological safety, the first step is to approach your team members with an open mind, right? Whatever ideas they have, you can't say that it's a silly idea. You should always be open to new ideas and see where they're coming from, because I believe that there's always brilliant ideas, even though every great idea starts out from a silly idea, right? No one would think that, oh, tires will actually be built using with air filled in them. It actually made sense back then, right? To just have a solid rubber tire. So teams that feel safe usually beat their sales target. So safe teams beat their sales target by an average of 17%, and unsafe teams to actually fall short of their targets by 19%. And unsafe teams, their meetings don't usually feel like a safe zone for their thoughts or their questions that they have. And the tone of the meetings can often be very condescending or aggressive at times. For safe teams, the response to mistakes is to consistently have the spirit of gotta break the egg to make omelets. And yeah, that summarizes the idea of having safe teams very well. And this is something that we have in Google also, and all of you can do it very simply also by sending a simple email and tagging the entire team to thank someone. And this encourages like frequent appreciation, reward risk-taking, and foster psychological safety for every small effort that your team members have contributed to the entire team. And risk-taking always starts off by publicly recognizing that people who take big risks, you should always publicly recognize people who take big risks, even if they fall short of success. And you should always continuously stress the importance of trying new things in service of ambitious goals. So only when you have, when you are daring to try new things, then you can sort of have great ideas that can help your company. So I'll just pause here and ask if anyone has any question before we move on to the activities. For the 4 concepts, if anyone has any questions. No questions? Okay. So we'll just move on to the activity, which is you can do activity number 3, number 4, and number 5, and we'll take about 10 minutes for all of you to fill up the rest of the activities. And do use this, do feel free to use this template to actually come up with like your team's culture of innovation. And this is something that you can actually take for the next few years, and you can remember that, okay, few years down the line, like maybe 5 years from now, this was what we came up with, and this is actually what we lived up to in 5 years down the road. So the questions are all there. So for activity 3, how can we empower each other? Then for activity 4, how will we collaborate across the organization or across the team? And lastly, what risks will we take to encourage different ideas across the entire team? So I'll just give everyone perhaps about 10 minutes to fill up activity number 3, number 4, and lastly number 5. See most of you finishing up, so perhaps we can actually conclude the session in about 1 more minute. I see some of you are still filling up the last portion on risk-taking, but I think most are done. It's great to see. So perhaps we can have 1 more minute. Thank you everyone for taking part in this activity so actively. I see most of you already have filled up the Jamboard. So perhaps the first team that we can have to share with us are Jinvo Studio. Can one team member perhaps unmute yourself and explain what is your team's commitment to creating a culture of innovation in your team? Anyone, Jinvo Studio? If not, I'll just call out your name. Ibnu Harun or Ibnu Qayyim? Jangan malu-malu.
Hello.
Can you explain to us your your team's culture of innovation, starting with perhaps curiosity?
Yeah.
Jangan malu-malu ya. Okay.
Sorry.
Okay, sure.
My English
boleh gunakan. Boleh gunakan bahasa juga.
Ya, jadi di tim kami sebagian besar itu cukup produktif ketika di pagi hari. Namun sebagian ada yang lebih bekerja lebih produktif lagi ketika malam hari, seperti vampir kayak. Lalu di tim kami lebih memiliki inovasi ketika diskusi ngobrol-ngobrol santai di sore hari di luar jam kerja seperti itu. Dan kami sangat penasaran, curious tentang gacha game dan social game. Dan kami juga ingin membuat game yang menghubungkan antara kesukaan anggota-anggota tim kami menjadi satu game yang dapat kita mainkan bersama. Selain itu, kita juga selalu untuk empowerment, kita selalu brainstorm bersama di semua aspek dan menekankan bahwa ini adalah game kami bersama, sehingga setiap anggota memiliki rasa kepunyaan terhadap produk kami, dan kami tidak sungkan atau tetap akan memberikan saran, masing-masing anggota akan tetap memberikan saran terhadap anggota lain, meski tidak peduli tingkatan si anggota, apakah dia junior atau senior seperti itu. Lalu untuk collaboration, kami pastinya menggunakan collaboration tools seperti GitLab, Trello, dan lain-lain. Dan kami juga memiliki virtual room yang dapat dimasuki kapanpun oleh semua anggota. Dan itu membuat kami merasa bekerja bersama, lebih terasa bekerja bersama, dan membuat kami lebih mudah untuk mendiskusikan sesuatu. Lalu mengenai risk taking, kita selalu memperbolehkan semua anggota untuk memberikan idenya, tidak peduli tingkatan level anggota tersebut. Selain itu, kita juga, namun kita lebih selektif lagi untuk mengambil ide yang berisi tentang sesuatu hal yang kita belum pelajari, dan mengukur apakah itu memungkinkan untuk kita kerjakan atau tidak.
Sip. Terima kasih Ibnu untuk sharing on behalf of Jimvo Studio. So very, very interesting sharing, and yeah, very true. A lot of the because of the current situation, sometimes having a virtual room where everyone can just come in is a sort of a collaboration, right? So you feel like you are in a office again, and you can drop in anytime in the room and ask simple questions, because that's an element that we can no longer have because of the fact that we can't go back to office, we can't have that small talk. So yeah, on your point of having ideas come to you when you are bila santai selepas waktu kerja kan, you can relax, have time, talk to your friends, and that's where you can be the most innovative. So thank you for sharing that. Perhaps we can get one more studio to share. Let me see. Let me choose randomly. Slab, SLAB. This studio Slab, SLAB. Anyone from this studio wants to share? Hermanto. Hello.
Okay, I will share that. Can you put my yeah, because I have to see for the question on my other screen.
Okay.
Okay. I'm sorry, my voice is a little bit because I have like sore throat.
Okay, no worries. Don't strain yourself.
Okay. So yeah, about activity number 2, curiosity. Where are my team members and myself most productive? Yeah, we are most productive usually during the early days in the morning, or usually after midnight. That's where our team usually most productive, and for most innovative, usually we are doing it on the early morning. And for question number 2, what are my team members and myself curious about? We are curious about finding new life experience, of course, so we don't get bored of developing games and new fun gameplay, of course, for our next project. and creating number 3, where do I see myself and the team heading towards in the next few years? For this question, I don't really know what the answer, but we always know that we have to create good games that people like. So we always find new gameplay, new mechanic, things like that. And for the empowerment,
sorry, Hermanto. Is it okay if you speak a little louder so that because some people said that they can't really hear. And to everyone else, yeah,
is it good now?
yeah, it's better now. Thank you so much.
Okay. Because
Okay,
I
you
have
make
a little bit sore throat, so I cannot speak very loud.
okay. Just move the mic as close as possible.
Okay. Yeah, I'm moving my mic.
This is great. You're doing great. Thank you.
Okay. For how can we empower everyone in the team when making decisions? Usually we are just brainstorm ideas quickly and not judging the ideas too early. So usually we are just like take down a note of what the ideas that we can brainstorm at the time, and we make a time to like discuss about the ideas later. And then we also respect each other opinion and ideas, of course. So how will we handle mistake when it has already happened? Yeah, we learn from mistakes and accept that we can make mistakes. That's the most important thing, because usually in our project, we like face new ideas and new methodology to solve problems. And usually usually it just doesn't work. And we know that we can always make mistake, and we learn from that mistake and improve in the future. So yeah, that's how we learn. What has the team done to handle past conflicts, and how will it be done differently? Okay, usually we discuss about each other opinion and share about our opinion and what can be fixed. Yeah, it's very simple. How will creativity be handled in the team? Yeah, we usually brainstorm and heated but controlled discussion. So yeah, we usually just like usually if it's already serious about like digging new ideas, usually we have to be very honest about our idea. So if it's not going to work, we say that it's not going to work, it's bad, and we cannot continue with this, and we wrap it. So yeah, we have to, but we have to also have like background why we say something like that. So yeah, we have to learn about the ideas first and discuss a lot of things and every aspects of the idea. Next, on activity number 4, what current tools can we use to collaborate? We usually use the standard tools like Google Drive, Discord, GitHub, and Trello. Will we collaborate better when doing work? Usually we use like daily updates, daily meetings at the end of the day, and weekly meetings for bigger updates. How often should we collaborate? For what reasons? Yeah, it's I think the same answer like the previous one. Online. When should we have meetings? Yeah, because we are now worked remotely, so we have online tools like Discord, and offline meetings not possible right now. And the next question, number 5. What is the team's commitment towards a safe working environment? Usually we just put a standard practice like 8 hours time and healthy living condition, and we all the time prioritize our health, like physical health and mental health first. And what risk would the team be willing to take?
usually we realize experimental ideas and long-time projects. I think it's the most risky things that we did before. And when and how would team members be acknowledged? When we finish each task, we acknowledge it and share what have been done to improve the project. We will still recognize the work if it fell short and work on how to find a solution and improve the project. How will the team react to new and foreign ideas? Usually we brainstorm each idea, test it, and make prototype based if it's feasible. Yeah, so I think that's all for my assignment.
Okay, thank you so much, Master Manto, for sharing your team's culture of innovation. And to everyone else, thank you so much for sharing your ideas for creating an innovative workplace in your respective studios. I hope that all of you will be able to take the ideas that you have and actually put it into play by first creating a culture of innovation within your respective teams, and then finally also implementing the three principles of design thinking, which is respect the user, think 10x, and be prototype driven. Now, only through these elements, you will come up with better ideas for your teams and develop games that people actually want to play. And I believe that I'm looking forward to see all of the games that all of you might develop over the years, and I'm pretty sure that they'll be fantastic games. And to end off, perhaps I'll share some resources. So Rework has some amazing resources. Some of the content that was presented today was taken from Rework, which was a Google initiative. And you can have a look at creating a culture of innovation and how to foster psychological safety in your respective teams. So with that, thank you so much everyone for tuning in, and yeah, we'll move on to the group consult. But before that, I'll hand it over to Nadia. Nadia, back to you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Farid Muhammad, for taking time of your busy schedule. That's really great for your knowledge sharing and your insight. Thank you.
No worries. I hope everyone enjoyed it.
Oke, semoga sharing dari Mas Farid bermanfaat ya buat semuanya untuk kolaborasi tuh, bagaimana prototyping di saat-saat kalian mengerjakan gamenya. Sip, bagi yang ada pertanyaan, silahkan ya.
Jangan malu-malu ya. Sila tanyakan soalan-soalan jika ada. Or any feedback for today's session, anything not clear?
Boleh. Ada feedback kah? Atau pertanyaan kurang jelas di mana? Boleh banget. Suruh dijelasin lagi.
Feel free to unmute yourself or just type it out in the chat. Yeah, I'll just wait for a few minutes for any questions, right, everyone? Saya akan menunggu berapa minit untuk anda semua formulasikan soalan-soalan anda. Di dalam chat juga boleh, ataupun unmute dan tanya soalan daripada mic anda atau mic anda.
Yes, bisa pulang pagian. Cuma sudah di rumah. Siap. Boleh tanya tentang tim Google nggak ya? Bisa seperti jika di tim Google itu berapa orang sih tergabung dalam prototyping, tim kecil atau langsung tim besar ya? In Google, can I ask something like how many people in the prototyping process? Is it a small team or a big team? Yeah.
Okay, so I'll just answer first, and maybe yang team member lain boleh answer juga. So depending on the project kan, kadang-kala ada tim yang kecil, kadang-kala ada tim yang besar. So depending on the team, team saya amat considered quite small, ada 4 orang. Dan so different teams have within different divisions, there's different teams, right? So sometimes a team can be 5 people, 4 people, but then within the division, a larger division, right? It's around like, let's say 10 or 12 people within the division, or even like 20 people. So it's all depending on whether it's considered a division or considered a working group. So working group is definitely smaller. So it's like macam project management kan. Project management, you are managing something very huge, a huge project. But between the project itself, other functional teams. So there's marketing, there's operasi, finance, dan juga ada what's that? So let's say these 3 lah. Marketing, finance, dan juga operasi. So within this, even within like the entire project, there's like, let's say 15 people, but between the different teams, there's only like maybe 4 to 5 people. So that's usually how it works in Google. Dan juga Mas Ferdian mau tambahkan?
Ya, thank you Farid. Dan menjawab Nadia ya, kalau sebenarnya prototyping itu di kita sih di Google ini benar-benar kayak ya hampir setiap hari, mungkin bukan prototyping produk aja ya, tapi kita benar-benar live with apa yang sudah Cindy sama Farid hari ini sharingkan lah. Jadi innovation design thinking itu udah menjadi seperti way of life kita. Jadi sebenarnya even ketika kita mau decision making atau mau membuat suatu project, itu kita selalu mengikuti framework atau tahap-tahap yang udah di-sharing Cindy dan Farid dari tadi pagi sampai sekarang. Jadi kayak contohnya aja misalnya nih, ketika kita prepare untuk buat Google Week ini, Google Week 1, Google Week 2, Google Week 3, ini mungkin di depan layar cuma kelihatan 1-2 orang dari Google gitu kan, 3 orang lah hari ini, ada Farid, Cindy, sama saya sendiri. Tapi sebenarnya di belakang layar itu ada kurang lebih ada 40 stakeholder dari Google yang bertanggung jawab, mungkin berbeda-beda seperti tadi yang Farid sudah sharingkan juga. Ada yang hanya meng-advise, ada yang kita ngecek untuk konten, ada yang tim. Jadi banyak sekali kontribusi orang-orang, dan setiap orang itu mempunyai peran yang berbeda-beda gitu. Jadi yang salah satu kalau boleh sharing juga, kita menggunakan dari internal yang kita namakan RACI model. Jadi aku type di sini. Mungkin teman-teman kalau misalnya ada yang mau membaca lebih lanjut, bisa di googling aja RACI model. Ini efektif banget dalam kita menggunakan project management dalam Google. Jadi jawabannya mungkin agak ngawur dulu, sorry, tapi ya basically kita nggak punya set of numbers yang khusus kalau misalnya mau prototype itu perlu berapa orang, tapi kita lebih melihat prosesnya, dibutuhkan siapa saja di sana untuk decision making, untuk membuat project atau prototype yang live, dan dari sana kita baru melihat apa yang kita perlukan. Mungkin kurang lebih seperti itu.
Oh, siap-siap. Thank you so much. Menarik. Oke, ini ada pertanyaan lain dari Kak Hermanto. Is it possible to have a failure project after a successful prototype? How to manage it? Silakan.
Okay, thank you, Nadia dan juga Hermanto, for that question. So, is it possible to have a failed project after a successful prototype, and how can we manage it? So it is always possible, right? Like the Google Glass example, they make a working prototype, and then the whole project just failed after that. I think that's actually quite common, right? And how do you manage it? Okay, so it's always important when you create the prototype, right, to try out as many, test out as many aspects of it as you can before you actually take it to the product development stage. And there's a lot of factors in play here. There's time, there's budget, there's also the current situation externally, right? You can have a good working prototype for, let's say, a hologram now, but who knows, maybe 10 years down the road, people might not want a hologram anymore. So it's always important when you have that prototype, test out as many things as you can. That's why we reiterate just now that point on what are the metrics that you want to use, measure as much as possible. That's very important for you to do. You should spend some time actually trying to figure out, like the prototype itself can take 45 minutes, right? But actually the OKRs or the metrics that you want, OKRs means objective and key results, or rather the metrics that you want to measure should be as holistic as possible, because you wouldn't want the case where, okay, I leave out, I want to create a new phone, but then I leave out the aspect of currently battery technology can only last, let's say, 8 hours or even 10 hours. But my phone model with these current functionalities, it draws out the battery, the current advanced technology in battery, it can last you only 1 hour with the current mobile phone that you are currently developing. So test out as many, you shouldn't invest in a failed project, right? Once a failed project is a failed project, then you shouldn't spend more time on it. You should just move on to the next thing, and you learn from it, learn how you can build a more holistic prototype that can test out more aspects of it. So I hope that answers your question on what to do after a failed project. You should never throw it away though. A failed project can just mean that it's failed now, but you should just still not say still continue on working it. You can just archive it and try to make a report. Okay, what went well, what went wrong, and then you can learn before you move on to the next project. I hope that answers your question, Manto.
Okay, thank you.
That's great.
Great. Next question from Kylabs Olive. What should be the first priority in developing a product? Do we consider the target market, then make an innovative product according to the market demand, or we just make something according to our passion? Yeah, okay, great. Silakan Farid.
Okay. So for this question, when developing a product, you want to consider your target market, then make an innovative product according to market demand, or we just make something according to our passion. I think this question, you can look at electric cars, right? So when Elon Musk invented the Tesla, and before that there were many different electric cars out there, right? But why is it that Tesla was a highly successful one? You can look at it from two different ways, right? You can say like, Elon Musk was an engineer. He was interested in perhaps the environment. So he comes from the passion point of view, where he created a product out of his entire passion. And luckily enough, as time progressed, I guess it was both luck and also being able to read the market, right? It just so happened like down the road that people started demanding more green vehicles, not safe vehicles, but rather environmentally friendly vehicles. So passion sometimes comes a bit of element of market demand. Okay, but if you create something just like a niche, like let's say you create an app for pet lovers so that they can remind themselves when to feed their pets, or have like a connected device that can, I can release food to my pets automatically while I'm away at office. That's passion, but that will also come in. It's a very niche market, because you're only concentrating on a very narrow kind of target market, and it's not a bad thing. Sometimes they do need this and they'll pay a premium for it, and that's where you get your revenue from, right? But there's also the aspect of like market demand. What is the broader market expecting, and how can I tailor this particular product into something broader? Like I said, sometimes when you think of a product, right, you tend to believe that, okay, you only help these particular users in a particular sort of fashion, but then realized there's certain side effects that will actually help a broader market. So an example of this I can think of is actually this medicinal drug called minoxidil, if you have heard of it. So minoxidil sekarang ada yang dalam bentuk pill. Then when you eat it, right, it actually lower your blood pressure. That was the use of the medicine. But actually, when they started to see the side effects, right, they actually realized that it can actually help people with hair loss regrow their hair on their head. So the main use was actually to reduce blood pressure, but the intended effect that now that is very popular to be used for is actually to help people grow hair again. So yeah, like I said, like products sometimes they have different intended side effects and you never know. So the first priority should always be not one or the other, but it's a mix of both. So it can be your passion, but just do your due diligence by identifying whether there's even a market demand for it. Or if there's no market demand in your particular country, Indonesia, there might be somewhere else. So that's my answer to the question. I'm not sure whether Ferdian or Cindy, whether you have anything to add for this question.
Maybe just to add a little bit, Farid. Kalau dari aku gini, Mas Olive ya, atau Mbak Olive ini, sorry, dari Kai Labs. Kalau aku sih, ya pasti pertama-tama harus ada passionnya ya, karena kalau ada passion, ada niat, intinya ada jalan bisa develop skillnya, develop talent dan lain-lain. Tapi sangat penting juga untuk kita membuat produk yang sebenarnya memang ada target marketnya gitu. Kalau nggak salah belakangan juga di YouTube ada banyak juga nih engineer yang mau lelucon ya, mau berlucu membuat barang-barang yang inovatif tapi tidak berguna sama sekali gitu. Jadi buat lucu-lucuan itu ada mungkin ada value-nya juga untuk menghibur. Tapi kalau dari segi contohnya kita hari ini ngomong spesifik dengan game development ya, sangat penting sekali kalau kita harus consider target market ketika kita innovate produk kita, karena ujung-ujungnya ya kita harus survive untuk keberlangsungan sustainability dari perusahaan kita sendiri, dari kerjaan kita sendiri. Jadi kalau misalnya kita, kalau aku sih melihat spektrum kanan itu passion, spektrum kiri itu target market, mungkin kalau bisa ke tengah-tengah sedikit lebih ke target marketnya supaya kita lebih sustainable aja, seperti itu.
Oke, terima kasih Kak Ferdian dan Kak Farid. Gimana dari Olive? Oke, we try our best. Oke. Actually, it's a little bit curious. When we develop something, we try to make our team passionate with our product, right? But at the same time, we should think, is it really okay in our market or not? But actually, in this world, idea just a trash because a lot of idea, and then the people who can make it real is the winner, right? Is that true? Because like idea to make a delivery food, it's not just one person ever thought of it, but a lot of people ever thought of it. But the people who can achieve it is the winner. So is it okay to say that if you can make it real, if you can make it real, you are the winner. But if you just an idea, it's just a trash. Is it okay to say that?
Ya, aku mungkin mau mulai dulu nih ya. Thank you Nadia. Mungkin konteksnya lebih seperti ini kali ya. Sebenarnya memang banyak sih, bukan hanya di Indonesia, seluruh dunia ini banyak sekali inovasi yang mungkin sebenarnya berguna sekali ya, dan menarik, berguna, dan mungkin bisa menjangkau orang banyak. Tapi seringkali, unfortunately itu marketing itu is as good, is as important as development gitu. Jadi kalau misalnya kita sudah membuat sesuatu hal yang baik, yang berguna, yang menarik, tapi kalau misalnya nggak ada yang tahu, ya ujung-ujungnya impact-nya minimal sekali gitu kan. Jadi mungkin ini akan dibahas mungkin lebih banyak di Google Week 2 nanti, atau mungkin teman-teman juga bisa follow up lagi di esokan hari atau sampai hari Kamis. Nanti ada beberapa teman-teman kita juga dari tim lain. Tapi yang mau aku sampaikan adalah sebenarnya marketing itu penting sekali. Jadi dalam hal ini mungkin dari segi publishing ya buat teman-teman game developer. Kalau kita sudah membuat produk yang baik, yang berguna, yang menarik, tapi kalau misalnya nggak ada yang tahu, ya ujung-ujungnya sangat minim impact-nya. Jadi makanya itu sangat penting sekali kita untuk nge-balance antara development dan juga marketing. Nah, mungkin ini aku mau kembali sedikit ke tadi pertanyaannya Olive. Mungkin makanya itu kita selalu perlu balance dalam tim itu, ada tim yang marketing atau sales atau komersial dengan tim development. Jadi bisa sama-sama mengawinkan aspek dari idealisme game development-nya dan juga bagaimana menjangkau sebanyak-banyaknya pasar di luar sana. Seperti itu.
Okay, thank you. Farid, you have something to say?
Yeah, so just one small point and to give you dan untuk tunjuk example. I'm sure all of you have watched Star Wars before, and the story behind Star Wars, George Lucas didn't want to start producing the film right back then. Why? Because the technology wasn't advanced enough to produce the graphics for the movie. So for many years, Star Wars was just an idea that was shelved, and it wasn't really something that was produced right into a movie. But over time, as technology developed, even the episode yang mana Star Wars A New Hope, kalau pernah lihat movie tu A New Hope, the animasinya amat how do you say low quality lah kalau bandingkan dengan movie Star Wars yang baru. So for many years, those Star Wars movies were shelved, and it was all because George Lucas wanted to take the risk, right, to produce a movie, and it became such a huge hit. So sometimes you shouldn't think like, okay, ideas are just ideas, and you shouldn't produce it because the current technology doesn't allow it. But as long as it's something novel, something interesting, there's a fair chance, not saying it will be successful all the time, but there's a fair chance it might appeal to a certain target market. Yeah.
Okay, thank you so much. Great. New world. Oke, silakan dari Ozisof jika ingin bertanya.
I'm from Ozisof. I think this is my chance to ask this to the Google itself right now. If I talk about Google Play games, I think the market is still oversaturated. That even if we make the games that so innovative, nobody bet an eye to the actual games. Majority of people just choose the product that already established or have a huge fan base right now. How do you survive in this kind of market? Many developers just like from how do I say this? Scam games that people spam our browser right now. What are you guys from Google Talks about this? That is my question. Thank you.
Ya, thank you pertanyaannya, Mas Fahru Roji ini ya. Mungkin untuk kalau boleh disimpan pertanyaannya, nanti hari Kamis itu kita akan kedatangan dari teman-teman dari Google Play-nya langsung. Mungkin nanti di hari keempat, hari Kamis bisa ditanyakan lagi dengan ke mereka ya, supaya lebih jelas, karena kita bukan dari tim Google Play. Tapi kalau aku sendiri dari tim AdMob, jadi nanti teman-teman dari tim aku bakal datang hari Rabu untuk ngomong tentang monetisasi aplikasi atau game. Sejauh ini sebenarnya kalau kita melihat saturated apa enggak, sebenarnya yes and no ya. Kalau misalnya kita melihat sih, dari populasi gamer di dunia masih sangat besar peluang kita. Dan sebenarnya juga kalau kita melihat dari teman-teman kita dari tanah air aja, banyak juga sih sebenarnya yang bisa sempat masih ada peluang pokoknya, intinya itu bisa masuk ke pasar-pasar di global sana, entah itu dari segi partnership dengan teman-teman di luar, atau memang ada self-publishing, atau memang produknya sangat bagus, yang mungkin bisa dikompetisikan lah di ranah internasional. Jadi itu aja mungkin yang aku bisa share hari ini, Mas. Mungkin pertanyaan disimpan, mungkin nanti hari Kamis bisa ditanyakan lagi ke teman-teman dari Google Play kita ya.
Oke, berarti disimpan dulu. Jangan sampai lupa ya, dicatat pertanyaannya. Ntar hari Kamis ditanyain lagi ke Google Play-nya. Gimana dari Pak Rurozi? Oke, sip. Thank you, Kak Ferdian, buat jawabannya. Iya, tadi ceritanya Kak Farid bagus tadi. Thank you. Sip, ada pertanyaan lagi kah dari Ozisoft? Mungkin masih ada pertanyaan lain? Kalau sudah tidak ada, mungkin di lower hand aja ya. Oke, sip. Dari teman-teman lain? Ya, Ozisoft mau pertanyaan lagi?
Sorry, enggak. Tadi pengen nge-lower hand.
Oke,
Yeah, sorry.
Siap. Ada pertanyaan lain kah dari teman-teman?
Yeah.
Iya.
Yeah. Hello, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Andre from Orange Game Production. My question is about the target audience. If we are trying to targeting a big market like 100,000 player, how much respondents we need to actually represent that big number, represent all the people? Is a small group enough, like 10 people, or maybe not? And please elaborate why. Thank you.
Saya boleh answerkan dulu. Dan lepas tu Cindy boleh add on kerana dia tadi share tentang market research, right? So untuk let's say you want to go into a market with 100,000 people, there's not really a set number like, oh, I should interview 1% or interview 10%. I think it all depends on first what timeline are you looking at? Depending on the timeline, how much responses can you actually get? So that's all estimate. Then there's also your budget, right? So how much budget do you have to? Because more responses obviously means more budget, right? That you need to pump into market research. So for that, usually what the process is, maybe you can start off with a focus group discussion before you go into, like, let's say a mass kind of survey. Because why focus and a survey? Because the focus group helps to generate like a qualitative understanding of the topic at hand, and it also helps you discover what am I missing that I haven't initially thought of. Because let's say you do a survey first. Survey is all very straightforward, right? And it's probably you and a few team members that are sort of formulating this survey. So your answers will be very streamlined. So it's always good to perhaps start off from a small focus group. Then for that focus group, you move on to a bigger market research. But I cannot tell you exactly how many you should be doing if you want to go into a market and you want to have like 100,000 downloads. That depends on how much timeline and of course how much budget you have to put into the market research. Yeah. Cindy, perhaps, or Ferdian, you might want to add on, if anything.
Yeah, I think Farid already covered all of the insights. Jadi yang pertama itu kita juga lihat dari sisi timeline-nya, yang kedua juga dari sisi budget. Dan tadi Farid juga udah menjelaskan kalau we can go with kualitatif dulu, contohnya with FGD or the user interview. Habis itu baru go with the market research survey. Nah, biasanya memang kalau market research survey ini, the number of respondents itu biasanya depends on the skill. Oh, sorry, it's echoing there. Yeah, is it clear? Like, or I think like, yeah, I think it's echoing. Sorry. Yeah, so actually the number of respondents biasanya normalnya minimum is biasanya minimum itu 100, tapi we can also expand based on the budget dan juga the timeline itself.
Oke, thank you Kak Farid sama Kak Cindy buat jawabannya. Jadi depend, terus lebih baik dari kecil ke besar, seperti itu.
Agak sedikit menambahkan aja, kalau misalnya teman-teman yang dulu pernah kuliah statistik itu biasanya kepercayaannya market research adalah statistically significance itu kan di angka 5% ya. Tapi of course ya seperti tadi Farid di sini katakan, kita juga harus nge-balance antara quality dan quantity-nya dan juga budget yang kita punya gitu. Tapi ya biasanya ballpark figure sih teman-teman yang ada 100, ada yang 1000, ada yang benar-benar benar harus coba sampai 5% kalau misalnya budgetnya memungkinkan gitu.
Oke, siap-siap. Dari Kak Andre, gimana? Sudah menjawabkah?
Yeah, thank you very much. So it depends on our resource budget and timeline. I had a second question, if I may.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, if the feedback is equally split between the respondents, what shall we do? Because different places have different culture. Like for example, foreign gamer or Western especially said the story of the game and the script is one of their main reason to choose a game, but Indo player doesn't bother with it so much. Something like that. What should we do if we happen to find a case like that? Thank you.
Ya mungkin aku bisa langsung coba nih Mas Andre. Kalau aku boleh saran sih biasanya setelah kita ada preliminary result seperti itu, walaupun split apa enggak, jadi kan contohnya ini 50% 50-50 ini ya resultnya ya. Kalaupun nggak 50-50, sebenarnya it will be good untuk kita selalu A/B test dari solusi kita atau produk kita atau fitur kita gitu loh. Jadi contohnya nih kalau misalnya gamenya memang sudah live, kita bisa dengan gampang pakai remote config di Firebase tuh. Misalnya kita bisa A/B test langsung kan ya. Bahkan kalau misalnya ada nggak 50-50 pun mungkin misalnya ada dari kadang-kadang ada dari tim itu ada yang lebih suka A, yang satu lebih suka B gitu ya. Kalau misalnya mau di testing bisa aja sih langsung di split traffic, langsung dites di live audience gitu. Dan dari sana nanti salah satu dari step prototyping yang tadi Farid sudah share juga kan kita perlu untuk memprepare metrik-metrik apa yang kita mau lihat supaya kita bisa tahu apakah tes itu sukses apa tidak gitu. Nah, jadi kalau misalnya boleh saran sih selalu kita sarankan untuk A/B test walaupun memang kalau misalnya ada lebih dari satu opsi yang mau di testing gitu.
Oke. Ada yang mau menambahkan dari Kak Farid atau Kak Cindy mungkin? Cukup? Jadi begitu, Kak Andre, gimana? Sudah menjawab atau belum?
Yeah, thank you very much for the answer.
Oke, thank you juga Kak Ferdian buat jawabannya. Berarti siapin aja dua-duanya gitu. Mungkin yang satunya base story, yang satunya enggak base story. Ntar mana yang lebih laris di kedua negara. Mungkin kayak gitu ya. Oke, sip. Ada pertanyaan lagi kah? Atau kita cukupkan untuk hari ini?
Sorry, Nadia, ada satu dari chat yang mengatakan how to avoid boring prototype from tester viewpoint and how to reach more tester when our product we build is similar like others. Okay, so for this question, perhaps how to avoid boring prototypes from tester viewpoint. I think it's inevitable that your prototype might seem boring, right? Because it is not meant to be perfect. It's just to test certain aspects of what your product will eventually solve. So Google Glass example again, they're trying to test out, okay, is it comfortable to wear for the entire day? But of course, the entire thing doesn't actually work, right? It's just a piece of what's that, transparent piece of glass that is attached to your glasses, and it's just meant to simulate how you look like, how your day will look like if you're wearing the Google glasses. So yeah, I mean, prototypes will eventually be boring unless you spend more time on it to build like a proper prototype. Seperti movie Iron Man, right? Yang paling pertama, he built that Iron Man suit in a cave. It didn't look perfect, but he can still do things like deflect bullets or even shoot fire from his arms. So that's still quite a cool prototype, and he spent like hours on it, as you can see from, of course it's a movie, but in real life also, the more time you put into developing a prototype, then the better it looks and the more functional it will be. But I guess prototype doesn't just have to be one, right? It can be different things that you are testing, and you build different things according to what you want to test. So let's say for all of you developing a game here, let's say I want to create a game where it's like a role-playing game, or even like a game where I'm chasing people around, or even trying to drift, like the car, you want to make the car drift in a mobile game. So how can you test some of these things in real life? Maybe some things that you can try is, okay, I want to have a multiplayer game. Maybe I can play it with my friends, see whether the rules make sense in the first place. So that's how I can sort of have like a fun prototype to test, like perhaps the rules of the game so that it makes sense. But for other aspects, maybe like the graphics of the game, that can be tested through other means. And how to reach more tester when our product which we build is similar like others. More testers, you mean like a more diverse group of testers? I assume that's what you mean, right? Mas Ervan, you mean like a more diverse group of testers? Okay, yeah, okay. So you want to have a more diverse group of testers, right? So that can come in like, okay, maybe like what I said before, of testing gamers and non-gamers. How would they feel about your product or your prototype? So that can be one way of looking at it. Or maybe even like in a different market, you can reach different testers from a different market. When Nokia first wanted to introduce the Nokia, what is it? The music phone. It was one of the first touchscreen phone that Nokia was trying to introduce, right? What they did was that they sent this mobile phone to people of different countries, see whether there's actually a market in it, right? So they send the phone for free to other people in different countries to get them to actually try the product and see what they feel about the product. So that's one way you can look at it. And about your product being similar to other, there's always radical innovation versus like incremental innovation. Even though there was Dota, right? Like some of you spoke about Dota, right? Dota has the same gameplay like Mobile Legends and even League of Legends. So how is it that some Mobile Legends became much more popular than Dota or even League of Legends? That's something that perhaps comes from the performance of the game or the graphics of the games or even the experience of the game that is different. And all this is pretty much incremental innovation that they have developed on. It's not always my product must be way different from yours to be better. Sometimes it's marketing. I market my product better. Sometimes it's incremental. My game just performs better. Sometimes my graphics is just better. So yeah, preferences and incremental innovation are things that we should take into account here. I hope that answers your question as well.
Oke, terima kasih. Siap, terima kasih Kak Farid buat jawabannya.
No worries. Thank you for that question.
dari increment dari produk sebelumnya juga nggak apa-apa ya. Yang penting ada sesuatu yang better dari produk-produk sebelum itu. Oke, thank you Kak Farid buat insight dan knowledge share-nya. Sip, masih ada pertanyaan kah? Silahkan. Saya hitung sampai 3 atau 5. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Oke, baiklah. Okay, thank you Mr. Farid for sharing your knowledge and insight. That's really awesome. Semoga dapat membantu teman-teman buat prototyping gamenya. Sip.
No worries.
Oh, thank you. Saya lupa open cam jadinya. Oh, oke, ini sekarang open cam. Thank you ya buat semuanya. Dan sebelum kita menutup acara, saya mau kasih ingat lagi buat teman-teman, silakan feedback-nya diisi. Saya copy paste lagi ya. Nah, ini silakan feedback-nya diisi karena nanti ada 3 orang yang mungkin feedback-nya bagus dan masuk akal bakal dikasih saldo 25.000, link aja Telkomsel. Seperti itu. Oke. Nah, karena sesi grup konsulnya ini berakhir, sekali lagi saya ucapkan terima kasih untuk Miss Cindy Pregita, Mr. Farid Muhammad, dan juga Kak Ferdian yang juga bantu-bantu jawab tadi. Terima kasih banget sesi Q&A-nya. Menarik, insight-nya juga powerful bagi teman-teman. Semoga bisa mencerahkan masa depan. Yeah. Oke, dan pada kali ini saya juga mau menyampaikan informasi yang nggak kalah penting lagi ya. Informasi ini berasal dari list event kami berikutnya, yakni event SSR Talk Season 2. Bagi teman-teman yang sudah familiar dengan SSR Talk Season 1, silahkan menanti SSR Talk Season 2. Episode 1-nya ini akan disiarkan pada hari Jumat ini, 16 Juli 2021. Event ini akan menghadirkan narasumber yang sudah melalang buana di bidang animasi, game, dan juga movie. Beliau luar biasa sih. Beliau adalah salah satu animator yang namanya tercatat di film Avengers and The Hobbit. Jadi jangan sampai lupa ya untuk mengisi form registrasi yang sudah ada di sosial media Facebook dan Instagram IXI. Oke, karena event kali ini spesial, hanya para register saja yang bisa menonton. Jadi silakan untuk membagikan informasi event ini kepada kenalan kalian yang mungkin suka game dan movie untuk mengerti kayak gimana sih seluk-beluknya gitu. Sebarkan sebanyak-banyaknya, seluas-luasnya karena dengan banyaknya antusiasme dari para viewers, jadi IXI ini akan siap menampilkan acara-acara serupa dengan narasumber yang spektakuler lainnya. Jadi ini kita kasih percobaan nih, minatnya ada nggak gitu? Kalau ya ada, kita kasih lagi lah ya gitu. Sip, baiklah, tiba saatnya kita di penghujung acara. Ini udah jam 15.53. Sekali lagi kami ucapkan terima kasih banyak atas waktu dan kesempatannya pada hari ini. Untuk Bapak Dinor yang tadi membuat speech, thank you so much. Bapak Randy Yusuf, Miss Emily Choi, Miss Cindy Pregita, Mr. Farid Muhammad, Kak Ferdian, juga para IXI mentor yang sudah hadir, IXI manajemen yang membuat acara ini, dan para IXI DGA Startup yang menonton acara hari ini secara live dan ada di meeting, serta semua peserta yang ada di YouTube streamer. Terima kasih yang sudah menonton. Oke. We hope that this event can be useful for all of game developer indie in Indonesia. On behalf of IXI Management, I'm Nadia Oktiswasmi. Thank you all for making time to join us here today. We look forward to seeing you tomorrow and at next event. Okay, have a nice day all. Terima kasih. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Bye-bye.